This is Diedrich Martin, Superintendent for Caledonia Community Schools. Tonight we are having our community town hall session, and we want to focus on the exciting new bond program that we will be working on over the next 5 years. Tonight, joining us for this town hall presentation, I have a few distinguished guests who will be helping us with the presentation. Please note that there will be 2 times during the presentation where our panelists will take a few moments to answer some questions or comments that have been submitted to us. After the event is finished, an FAQ document will be published to our website to clarify questions that were not addressed in the time allotted. Again, I'm Diedrich Martin, the superintendent. We also have Mr. Matt Hess. He is our executive director for operations for our district. We also have he is the president of Bill Robinson Pool Design. He's a pool specialist for our proposed community center. Also, we have Mr. Shane Napper. He is the president of Rockford Construction, construction manager for our proposed community center, and he is also a resident of our Caledonia school community. And finally, we have Mr. Travis Michael Sage. Mr. Sage is the principal architect at Stantec Architecture. He is the architect who will be speaking first, and he is the lead architect on our proposed community center. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Travis.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. Welcome, everyone. The proposed community center site is located at the, as indicated here, along Craft Road, Craft Avenue, and near the corner of Johnson, right across the street from Duncan Lake Middle School. Our new proposed site is right along the tree line, just south of the Holy Family Catholic Church, and occupies a portion of the total site development on the site. The image you see is an overall proposed site development diagram for the new community center. You'll see Craft Road on the right-hand side of the screen, running diagonally, north and south, north being to the upper right-hand corner of your screen. You see the new 150-car parking lot, which will be built and developed with the building and will allow for immediate parking and access to the new community center, which you see at the center of the site development. Also on this overall site development, you see future plans for additional play fields and track and field facilities that will surround the ultimate building site. To walk you through a bit of the floor plan of the new community center, we have 2 main entries to the building. They're both from the east, immediately off of the parking lot. The first one on the north end of the east side is the main community center entry, where you enter the building and arrive at a lobby and welcome desk, elevator and stair to the 2nd floor, as well as concessions and a main hallway, which leads you down to the locker rooms and additional program spaces of the building. The entry on the south end of the east facade is a direct entry for the Community Resource Center. So with that entry, you have the Community Resource offices immediately to the left hand, and the senior room and child zone, kids zone, located in that corridor. You'll also have a secondary access to the 2nd floor where the main athletic spaces are located. In the middle of this plan, you see the locker room arrangement. There are men's and women's locker rooms complete with also separate team rooms for the athletics programs to use for both men's and women's, and dedicated shower and restroom facilities for both. Thirdly, on that locker room complex is a universal changing and locker room with a unisex changing area or unisex locker area and separate dedicated changing and shower rooms located immediately off of that locker room space. To the south, you'll see the kids zone, which is located close to and adjacent to the recreation pool deck, and in fact has access out to the recreation pool deck. And there's amenities associated with the kids zone as well, which allow for it to be used as a hospitality space during competitive swim events. The feature spaces of the community center are really the two natatoriums. To the north end, immediately outside of the locker rooms, you have an 8-lane competitive swimming pool with a diving well integrated into that pool tank. So it can function for full competitive events. To the south of that is the recreation pool, which includes lap swimming and aerobic areas, splash zone, and spa. I'll let Bill Robertson speak in a little bit about some of the specific pool amenities. If we can move up to the second floor, you'll arrive from either of the two stairs at the north end or the south end, or the elevator from the main lobby. On this floor, we have several athletic spaces. We have the main gym floor, a walking track around the perimeter of the entire upper level, and a main weights, cardio, and fitness floor to the south end, with windows looking out to the fields on the south. In between the gym and fitness spaces, we have restrooms and equipment storage spaces. And then featured at the far north end is a multi-purpose room, which looks out to the tree grove bordering the site between, bordering the property line between the community center site and the Holy Family Catholic Church. And then you'll also see at this level the 200-seat gallery, which overlooks the competitive swim pool for spectators. So they'll be able to access and be within that pool environment during competitions to hear all of the activity and see all of the events. To give you a sense of what the facility might look like from the exterior, this is a view from the parking lot. You're looking at that main entry that you see located underneath the cantilevered overhanging entryway. And to the far left, you'll see the Community Resource Center entry. On the north side of the facility, we have the multi-purpose room kind of peeking out from that front side of the building, looking out to the tree grove. We also have some nice windows that are allowing northern light into the natatorium competitive pool complex, which allows for glare to be reduced and still allow for a nice naturally daylit environment. And then at this side of the building, we also have all of the pool mechanicals and building mechanicals located on the north side and screened from the road in the main view axes from the roadway and approach. And then lastly, we wanted to recognize that this facility is a day and night facility. It's a facility that's going to serve the community at all hours of the day. And we wanted to really be an important beacon for the community. So you're seeing the image of the building as it would look from the parking lot at night, illuminated from the inside with some glazed walls that allow for the opportunity for color to be introduced and or light to spill out into the parking lot area and really call out to the community. With that, I will hand it over to Mr. Napper to give you an update on the project logistics.
All right, thanks, Travis. Well, I'm Shane Napper, president of Rockford Construction, and as Dr. Martin said, a proud Caledonia resident, and super excited to be part of this project. A couple updates I would give you from the construction perspective, and we're going to keep this picture up for a couple of reference comments. One, we have been involved here since the beginning to allow to come alongside of both the Caledonia Community Schools and with Travis and his team and Bill and their team to really work hard from the beginning to really focus on a facility with a couple of perspectives. One, we are looking at things that make sure that we're looking at the long-term efficiency of this facility. And so we are doing an analysis. We continue the analysis of the first cost of the project. Obviously, we need to stay within budget, and we need to keep track of time, which we're doing, and we are in line for both of those. But also, it is not just about first costs, but I know in school systems and facilities like this, we need to really have a high thought on what are the operating costs and how these buildings work. So we are in the midst of that. We also have the ability to bring some historic data and historic perspective to projects like this. And one of the things I'm happy to report is that this building is really a highly efficient building. We get to see a lot of these type of building deliveries. And so from our perspective, the way to see the total square footage, the amount of program that this community will get to enjoy. I think Travis and his team have done a fantastic job of really packing a lot into a very great organized space. One of the other things that we're doing is we are analyzing what we would call the skin, or I would say it another way, the exterior facade of the facility. So we are in, as you can see on this drawing, we are in concept. We continue to work through concepts and eventually get to reality. But during the concept mode, we are analyzing right now the different components of the exterior of the facade, from the panels that Travis talked about there in the middle band. We have some insulated metal panels above. We have some masonry below, very strategic on where those materials are, how those materials work, really thinking about longevity, but also trying to blend this idea of a community center. Yes, it houses the school and the competitive sports, but it also houses the community and how they interact. And so our team is doing a really good job of really pulling that together. The last thing I would say is I usually get asked, how is it going schedule-wise? That's always one of our fine questions given to us. I will tell you, as you've heard before, we are still tracking for the end of 2023, and we are on schedule to do that. The design and development process is right where we thought we would be, and super excited to deliver that news. And with that, at this point, I am going to turn it over to our teammate and friend, Mr. Bill Robertson, to give you a little bit of input specifically on the pool and the pool amenities. Mr. Robertson.
Thanks, Shane. I'm Bill Robertson. I'm a aquatics consultant. I do a lot of high school pools, predominantly in the state of Michigan, but I do work around the country. In your particular case, the minimum guideline that we wanted to make sure we achieved was at least an 8-lane pool that allows for diving. The diving standards that we're using are a little bit more aggressive than technically we have to have. They actually exceed the National Federation of High School standards, and they do follow the guideline for the turn side of the pool. So basically we have a pool that goes from 4 feet deep to about 13 feet. And as of right now, we're programming the entire pool to be all tile with a concrete gutter. And then we also have a timing system that'll work in conjunction with the 25-yard pool. The pool does have the opportunity to be able to change temperature, so that if you do want to put together a separate program for the summer months to be able to program the pool with a little bit higher temperatures, we do have that flexibility programmed into it. in conjunction with the competition pool, whereby the natatorium or the pool area is going to be closer to the water temperature of around 80 degrees. We also have the leisure pool. In the leisure pool, we're looking at programming between 86 and as much as 92 degrees for some of those that have arthritis. Actually, we've been talking with the Y and working on what they do in their programming to be successful in a lot of these, and basically following the guidelines that we know work in most of these facilities. The big question we always get is longevity of the facility itself. These are all concrete and tile structures. At least that's what we've got everything planned for right now. So the longevity is there, but we also like to bring into conjunction with this the programming side ahead of the development. In other words, if the Y or the school or whoever is going to use the leisure pool, you'll have the opportunity for water features for kids. There's the pool goes to a 5-foot depth. There's a big spa at the end of it. There's just a lot of ancillary things that work in conjunction with this to basically give you a nice facility for aerobics, kids areas, and for some minor lap swimming if that's what you'd like to do within that area. We also have benches incorporated under the water to allow for swimming, learn to swim lessons, and then steps to help you make it ADA accessible. So we basically have, or trying to target all of the needs that we feel best suits the community and works in conjunction with the people within the district. Based on that, I think we're pretty much set on my end of it. Then I'll turn this back over to Travis.
And at this stage, we will be open for questions from our listening audience. We are going to have our panelists stay on to answer any questions that we may have from the first half of our presentation. So with that being said, do we have any questions?
We do. This is Steve. And just a reminder to anybody watching, if you hit the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, if you're watching through Zoom, you can ask your questions. The question we have is, Caledonia is an advanced non-motorized, has an advanced non-motorized transportation plan. Can you explain a little bit about how students will safely walk from the rest of the campus without impeding the flow of vehicular traffic to the proposed athletic complex? So what are sort of the connection plans, thoughts around the non-motorized and accessibility?
Okay, so I'll start this off. As far as students on the normal school day, our students will not be in this facility during the normal school day. When we have currently with our kids who participate in our swim program for competition, they're actually driving to downtown Grand Rapids. But this will not be a pool that is inside of the school building and part of a PE expectation. So there would be no need for students in that sense. They wouldn't be using this like your normal school building. This will be separate. The high school competition pool will be used for high school swim competition. So generally our kids actually drive to that now, or their parents drop them off in the morning before practice, unless they have after school practice, and then competition, getting back and forth to the competition will be handled just like we currently do. In some cases, the kids are bused. In other cases, they rely on parents or drive themselves or go in groups. So unlike all the rest of our schools, use of this facility is not necessarily going to be problematic in that way. For the use of track eventually down the road, if we have a track facility located there, if the that we'll have to figure that out. In most cases, our kids walk over from the high school and the middle school to the track competition, or they are brought there by their parents. If we need to shuttle them across the street, we can do that, or down the street. But right now, we don't see that as a big issue because it's not used for school children during the normal day functions.
I would only add that as we go forward, we recognize the lot of walking trails that already exist and walking paths within the community. The Calplex facility behind us, which partnered with Caledonia Youth Sports, has a great track walking area around that entire area. And we'd like to connect to that. We just don't know how it's going to work yet. So it's not on the concept yet, but we know that overflow parking will be across the street at Duncan Lake. And we're going to need to accommodate for all those things and people to get back and forth if we put those fields in those places. So it's not there yet. I think phase one is just to get this building up or started and going in, and we'll see what connects and how we can connect to the system from there.
Great. One more question on the facility. A question about whether the pool has a bulkhead, so whether the diving and swimming can occur at the same time. So maybe if somebody can talk a little bit to the multi-use aspect of the pool.
Actually, no, we do not. It is only a 25-yard pool. It is not a stretch, and there is no bulkhead in the pool.
And then another question about the pool. Was there consideration for the pool to be 50 meters like most other new school district pools? And any other thoughts on sort of how you laid that out?
So from my perspective, no, that was never, it was looked at, but trying to stay within the scope of the overall budget, we would have had to go for a much bigger bond to make that work. And that was not feasible for us to be able to go to that length. My understanding is this is pretty consistent with a lot of our high schools and very adequate for high school competition, but not at 50 meters.
And then a little bit about the seating capacity. So is 200 person seating capacity for the pool enough to host age group meets and everything you anticipate for that space?
Steve, one of the things that we did do in conjunction with the layout, there's a scoreboard that goes in directly across from the spectator seating. The scoreboard is used as a communication tool for what's going on in the natatorium as well as the competitions that are going down below. In conjunction with that, we have staging areas outside the natatorium to where if you had larger crowds or let's just say a dual meet and you were over capacity, we're actually planning on programming that by way of a video camera to those spaces outside the natatorium. Great.
Well, that was or concludes at least the questions that were directed towards this portion. We have a couple more for the next section, but I think if you want to move to the next section of the presentation, that would be fine.
Great, thank you, Steve. Thank you to our panelists. We're going to head into the next phase of this town hall meeting tonight. And so myself and Mr. Hess, we will speak to these items. And again, we will have an opportunity for questions and response at the very end.
Starting here, we have an outside overlook view of Duncan Lake Middle School. And I think the biggest thing to point out is the fact that the entry, the student entrance, the main entrance to the building is now going to be on the west side of the building. A lot of great reasons for this. The number one is that's where the parking lot is. And in that, to that extent, we are also essentially doubling the size of the parking lot, nearly doubling the quantity of cars we can park in there. And we're providing a new parent pickup and drop-off loop, completely, again, still separated from the buses by the building, but now on the opposite side. Before this, and currently, we have a very short parent pickup and drop-off loop where the cars are backed up on Duncan Lake Avenue, out to Johnson, even on Johnson. We now have that equal length on our property, so we have a lot safer parent pickup and drop-off zone for several thousand feet in that area. The new entry to the building is in that southwest, corner. The bus pickup and drop off now moves to that eastern side of the building where they will all fit and be much less of a traffic problem for Duncan Lake and Johnson Road. The main entrance to the building on Craft Avenue will be where it is now, that driveway. It'll be expanded some, and this will be down, it'll be south of the entrance to the new community center building. Moving inside, going to go from the new office. That area is being converted to a new office and a new secure entry for the building. The gym renovations in the next area includes replacing the bleachers. The lower sections of the bleachers will be fully replaced with new bleachers that I'd like to say they work, and that'll be a good thing. The upper section of bleachers are being removed so that we can do improvements to those two upper areas where currently we have softball training, we have wrestling training, and now they'll be available for a number of other options as well, as they'll be walled in and much more secure. The area that was formerly the locker rooms for the old gym is an area of the building that's currently not being used at all right now. And that is an area that's very conducive to a formatting as our new media center. This new format changes the shape, size, and configuration, allowing us to get a lot more use of technology, a lot more use of small meeting rooms, project rooms, and stuff and areas for students to work together. To the right of that is an art room that's getting refreshed with new cabinetry and improved services. And right below that is a large special education room and facility. It's currently where the transitions program is now. And as they move into the high school, we'll be moving a number of programs into this room. The building's classrooms over time will be migrating this direction in the building and moving toward this to keep that inclusive environment going. There are additional classrooms in the center of the building. This is currently the student counseling area and some student resources. Those people will be moving, those offices will be moving into what is the building administrative office now. And these will be some foreign language classrooms as well as a new teacher's lounge. There's a couple areas that are not labeled. These are some small storage areas that are being converted into, in this case, this eventually will be the English wing. And these will be book storage and some office space for itinerants, and as well as a couple classrooms that will be changed into teaching areas and just multi-purpose areas. To the right of that is what was now being used as our media center. This will be converted into 6 science rooms. The conversion here it's great space for it, as it allowed for some very creative use of those rooms and those spaces to provide a science area where all the grouping is together, where the teachers are together and they're moving in. The concept of this building moving from a 6-7-8 to a 7-8 as we realign for the 5-6-7-8 program, this becomes more like a high school with an English wing, a social studies wing, a math wing, and a science wing. And students will be moving much more like a high school. So it becomes, with all of the rooms grouped together like science is now, becomes a lot easier to manage and a lot easier to educate and for teachers to work together. Down in the bottom right-hand corner is the area that partially the north side of the hallway, or excuse me, the higher side on your picture, is currently part of the ECC, early childhood, and the bottom part is what is now the district administrative offices. Those will be vacated this summer. However, that area is not going to be under directly improvement this summer. We're going to be holding on to that. We're looking at different uses after we vacate and after we get the rest of this work done. Gross motor skills area, a cafeteria area for the ECC, as well as a variety of other possible office uses. We'll move on and get the outside of Craft Meadows Intermediate School. Yep, that's going to be the new name of this facility. Again, some great changes here, especially for parent pickup and drop-off. This school now has 328 line feet of sidewalk for parent drop-off at the front of the building. We're increasing that to over 1,400 line feet of parent pickup and drop-off with this improved parking area and improved parent pickup and drop-off line around the outside. This will take the traffic problems away from the main driveway, and it will definitely provide a much safer staging area for the parents working in the new parking lot. The bus area remains unchanged, and we'll still have the main entrance to the building in that front area where people can park, and we don't have to interfere with the parent pickup and drop off. Yes, this design does include a traffic circle, but that is definitely the safest way to separate the three areas of traffic and keep everything moving as comfortably as possible. Again, the increase in parent drop-off is basically triples or quadruples the amount of sidewalk space we have to accomplish that goal safely. Moving on to the overview of the building. The goal here at Craft Meadows Intermediate, again, is going to be a 5th grade hallway, a 6th grade hallway, with the teachers mixed more like an elementary school. And the center portion, I believe right now we're planning on having that be some of the science and STEM labs and things like that. But we needed 4 more classrooms to accomplish that. They're practically going to be invisible when you look at it from the outside because they're on the inner courtyards attached to the ends of those buildings. That gives us 4 more classrooms, 2 at each level. And at the front of the building, taking up space where the front concrete apron is the additions to the cafeteria. We recognize that with the level and number of students moving into this building that the current cafeteria was not sufficient. This physically doubles the size and capacity of the cafeteria, and we increase the size of the serving area as well to allow for much quicker flow, much quicker getting your food and having more time to eat instead of standing in line. Pardon me. Before we move on to the administrative office, I just want to share that it's interesting. We're beginning to address the challenges of moving all these teachers. We have a lot going on, people moving between buildings and moving side to side in the building. So we're looking forward to that excitement on top of all of this. And we are looking to start different parts of the construction before the school year is out. We have a plan in place where we'll be working on some of the unoccupied areas away from students as early as potentially spring break. So that's exciting, and we'll get students will get a chance to see their building coming up before they even get out for the summer. So now moving on to the new administrative office.
Thank you, Matt. As you may have noticed when we were previewing the changes to Duncan Lake Middle School, the current administrative offices will be moved out. So the theme is trying to create more space for the early childhood programming and other district needs, as well as creating more space for an increased number of students when Duncan Lake transitioned to a 7-8 facility. So we have some programs moving out. You've heard about the transitions program moving to the high school. For central administration will be taking over the building that is currently known as Glenmore. This will become the new Caledonia School Administrative Office. This portion of this rendering is already there. This is the current Glenmore site. So as you can see, there will be some additions to this site. With us over time having so many things in a pretty compact area for Duncan Lake, and you got Cal-El across the street, you got a community resource center, you got all of the staff from Duncan as well as the early childhood, you got all the traffic and visitors coming in and out of the administration building. At some points, the traffic flow gets pretty dicey at times, and we also see that parking is a challenge. So by moving the resource center out over time, once the new community center is completed, moving out the central office, group, moving out the programming for, relocating the programming for transitions, as well as a few other changes. We foresee our district having the ability with our reconfiguration of K4, early childhood K4, 5, 6, 7, 8, us having the capacity to take about an additional 1,000 students, but still keeping the same number of buildings and not adding a 6th elementary building or something to that nature. So we believe that this will set us up into the future. And so here is the outside rendition of the new central office space. If you're not familiar, Glenmore is currently located near our transportation center and across from Emmons Lake Elementary. So with that being stated, we're going to open it up for questions and answers for portion 2 of our town hall discussion tonight. We will have some future town hall meetings coming up very soon. We actually started in December with our first town hall meeting around a movie called The Social Dilemma, and we were really digging deep and exploring kind of the impact of social media and the influence on adolescents. And we'll probably have some follow-up with that in the future. Tonight was a bond to really focus on the community center, middle school, and the new administration, in the sense so that people could see what's the focus of phase 1. Remember, this is basically the first year of a 5-year bond project. Next month, towards the end of February, we will do another town hall to really focus in on the changes that we see in the future for elementary, transportation zones that have been established, and other future bond projects. In March, we'll speak to summer learning opportunities. It'll be time to gear up and prepare our families for that. And then also in April, we'll look at fall online opportunities. In May is to be determined. So with that, please note that we'll be coming back again because we have so many things going on with the bond. But I'm going to turn it over and see if we have any questions from Steve.
We sure do. So a couple questions related to this section, and then a few more came in about the community center. And just wanted to remind people that if they hit the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen there, they can get their questions in as well. Question on Young Fives. In regards to Young Fives, can you explain a little more about how transportation will work? The example that was given is I have 2 siblings that are bused to Kettle. How will young 5 siblings get to DLECC?
Yes, so what I would actually encourage our audience to do is maybe save those questions to the next presentation, because when you start getting into the transportation zones, Young 5, that's really going to probably take almost another hour of conversation, but we do have kind of a plan that would help with some visuals and other information to share around that. But again, in February, we'll be talking about the elementaries, which will include the Young 5 programs, early childhood facility, and what that would look like for transportation for that.
And maybe a little related to that is, could you go over maybe one more time a little more around the timing of the administration move and ECC and some of those transitions? Yes,
so right now the tentative view is that they may have the administration facility ready for us to move in right around the start of the school year. The problem with that is it is a very busy time where parents are coming in for last minute registration and other things. So we haven't totally nailed down when that transition will happen to the new administration building. And we hope to have that in the coming weeks. But until the administration building is completely vacated, we won't begin the planning phase for what will happen with the additional space that will be freed up for additional programming with the Early Childhood Center. And again, we'll get more into that portion of it with the Early Childhood Center in future updates. But I would suspect sometime in the fall, whether that is shortly before or shortly after school gets started, the administration building will start to vacate, which will at least help with some of the parking and traffic flow that the Duncan Lake School and the Early Childhood Center and the Resource Center are still contending with in the fall.
Great. And then another question, could you explain a little bit more of the background for why Craft is being used as the 5th and 6th grade building instead of for 7th and 8th grade? So what were some of the reasons for the choice of how you chose buildings for the different grade groups?
Sure. So a lot of it, we had a team of teachers, educators, and administrators looking into which buildings should be used for which purpose. And essentially, looking at the size and the scope of the bond that we were doing and not wanting to get into $100 million bond. The history of Duncan Lake Middle School is that it was formerly a high school. So when you're talking about 7th, 8th grade students and the competition level that's occurring right now, all of our middle school competition is occurring at Duncan Lake because of the facilities. And to add that type of space and make Craft capable of doing that was going to be a significant increase in change in what we were going to have to do in order to accommodate that versus refreshing and changing other parts of the building to accommodate that. So that was a lot of the thinking for that we already do all of our competition and a lot of our extracurriculars at the middle school level out of that. And that's really going to be much more plentiful at the 7th, 8th level than what you are going to have at Craft. And so just the building capacity when we remove some of these programs brought all of that to the point where it made much more sense. And it would be a much more efficient use of the community's bond dollars.
Great. Well, those were the selection of questions for that section of the presentation.
Okay.
A couple more came in related to the community center. Is there a plan for water polo? Any thoughts on a facility where water polo could be played?
That is a new question for me. So no, there's been no plans that I'm aware of for water polo.
Anybody else care to weigh in on water polo? No. Okay.
I think Bill Roberts had a question or wanted to comment.
Water polo today in high school competition can be done in a 25-yard pool. We could put goals up, and then what they'll do is they'll split ends when they need to go team to team because half of them because of the deep versus the shallow water. True water polo is swam or takes place in a course that's usually at least 6 or 6.5 feet throughout. And because of the shallow end of the pool, goal configuration would have to change, but yes, it could be done. And it has been done, by the way.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then a question, is a sauna or a whirlpool in the plans for any kind of muscle therapy? Maybe any other consideration for either how this facility could be used for rehab or for any other demographics, really, aging demographics, et cetera? Actually,
yes, it is. It's actually programmed for not only to do aerobics, but you could bring a physical therapist in and they would love it. It's actually set up like we set up a hospital, and it gives you the flexibility of recreation in conjunction with hospital. So yes, if you wanted to do that, it'd be perfect. And at the end of the leisure pool, the whole length of that leisure pool is a spa. So it's actually a nice amenity to have. The hardest part is keeping the kids out of it.
Thanks. A question about the partnership with the YMCA. So maybe just talk generally a little bit about the partnership and kind of what stage that's in, and then what are the thoughts on whether the YMCA membership or a YMCA membership would work with this center, specifically if somebody already belonged to a different center, for instance?
You know, that's a great question, and I'll have to get with the president of the YMCA. I've been talking to him this week. We've both been working with our attorneys. They are working through a lease agreement. It will be a long, slow process, so I imagine it'll be several months before that's completed, but conceptually, we are in the same page in the sense that we want to keep a partnership that has, where the YMCA has been operating in our schools for well over a decade. So they do see this as operating very much like a traditional YMCA, but they also understand that there will be the unique nuance of dedicated space for our community resource center and flex use of some of that space for some of our programming. And they are working with us to try to ensure that this, the overall operations of this facility would be at no cost to the district. So the great partnership in this is, if you are familiar with high school pools, I don't know of a school district that doesn't see that as a huge challenge to the budget because you generally can't develop enough programming to cover the cost of ongoing maintenance and upkeep of a pool. But with having it attached with the YMCA in this creative partnership, that allow our high school students to not have to drive to downtown Grand Rapids for practice every morning or every day, especially in the winter months. Have the ability to practice right down the street from the high school, get to the school and have a nice competition area. And from a district perspective, it will be sustainable well into the future because it won't cost us like it does other high schools. But exactly what the cost parameters will be and how that plays with other YMCA memberships, that I just don't know at this point. I would imagine sometime, you know, again, this facility won't be completed until 2023. I think we'll have more than ample time to start to lay out the details, you know, at least 6 months or more before it opens up. But we are working on that right now, the YMCA president, myself, and our attorneys.
Great. A couple more questions came in related to scheduling of the 5, 6, and 7, 8 buildings. So I know this is a work in progress, but can you talk a little bit about what the thinking and what the process is right now related to start and end times of the day, how those will align for the different buildings in conjunction to either elementary or high school?
Yeah, so that was another thing that was related to which building would be the 5, 6, which one would be 7, 8. And so we did have teachers and administrators and even our athletic department staff kind of give us some guidance on that. And so the thinking is that the 5th, 6th building will be on a secondary schedule, very much like what we currently have. So thinking back a couple years ago, when I got here in 2018, we noticed that traffic was a problem. So what we did do is do some changes to the traffic pattern at the high school, but we also we had 3 locations that started within 5 minutes of each other. We stretched that out to 10 minutes this year in last year. And we're not 100% sure exactly when the start and end times will be, but it will be pretty close to what it is now. There may be a slight change, but with the 10 minutes that we've already added, the traffic flow changes at the high school that we implemented, and the additional traffic flow and parking changes that we are making for the 5, 6, and 7, 8 facility, and moving our central administration out of the way and eventually our community center. We believe that, you know, we can't control what the townships will do with Johnson and Kraft, but we believe that this will enhance the overall flow for traffic for everyone. But in order to make all of this work and transport our elementary kids, it was really almost imperative that we keep the 5th, 6th on the same type of schedule as the 7, 8 in the high school. And the other thing is our 6th grade students do participate in middle school athletics. They don't have the full complement of middle school athletics, but historically speaking, we always had a large number of students, whether it was cross country, track, tennis, and other things for 6th grade competition. So if we didn't have them on that schedule, that would take away that opportunity and benefit for students. So we're going to keep them on that schedule.
Great, thank you. Mr. Hess, anything to add to that?
Nope, he hit that right on.
All right, fantastic. That is our host of questions. So if you have any closing remarks, I think we're ready.
Absolutely, this is wonderful. We try to keep these to an hour and try to be informative. I will say to the community, we do have a website. If you go to the calschools.org, you will see one of the tabs across the top. It says Bond 2020. If you have some questions that you think of, you can click on that tab, submit a question, and that question will be given to the bond team and we will respond to that question. We also try to update that page with frequently asked questions that come up over the course of time so that we can keep our community informed. You'll also find financial information on there, as well as information over time showing the progress of where we are with the bond, and as we get deeper into this, other phases of the bond. Also, just a reminder, I know there's a lot of questions regarding the elementary updates, transportation as it relates to our elementary zone, our early childhood, and other future bond projects. And so we want to get into that during our February date. That exact date is yet to be identified, so look for some information on that. And over the course of time, we will continue to try to update our community so that we can be fully transparent. Do understand that, you know, while we would love to be able to say that we have all the answers, this is a 5-year project. So one, every project can't be put to year 1. It's just not doable. 2, for some of those projects that will be in year 2 or 3 or 4, you know, we will start to develop those details as we get closer to those phases of the project. So again, we want to thank everyone tonight. Hopefully this was informative for you. I want to thank my guest, Mr. Shane Napper, who is again the president of Rockford Construction. I want to thank Bill Roberts. He's our pool expert. He has, it's kind of he probably won't mention this, but he is known as a national expert and have designed pools not only all throughout Michigan, but throughout the country, as well as in other countries. So we feel very fortunate and blessed to have his expertise. And also Travis, he, with Stantec, he has done a phenomenal job helping us have some conversations with probably, I don't know, 14 different community groups to really determine how best to use approximately 25 million to do the very best we can to capture as many of the things that we've heard from our community with the dollars that we have for this facility. And I think so far it's still in conceptual design, but I think this team has done a phenomenal job. We look forward to that in the future. I do imagine that probably as we get into next school year, when things settle down, we'll probably have some follow-ups just to brief the community on how things are moving. So with that, we're going to sign off. Thanks, everyone. We will probably have a recording listed on our website. So if you know of someone who wanted to see this, eventually it will get up on our website with the FAQs. Thank you. Have a great night.